Hey everybody, Stephen Bogran from Pro Physique, and today I'm talking about those zero-calorie foods.
My name is Steven, and this is our video about health and fitness things. And I work for Pro Physique, and I am just a guy with a fitness thing for you.
So hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. Today's talk, zero-calorie foods. And I'll talk a little bit about maybe some of those like fit food kind of things that a lot of us really enjoy, or a lot of us may really enjoy, because they are important considerations, especially for those of us who are trying to maintain or lose weight, and maybe even for some of us who are trying to gain weight. And so one of the first things that I want to talk about when we talk about zero-calorie foods is how the FDA allows 0 calories on that label. And essentially, that means that if I make a serving size on my food item for the label that is under said amount of calories, great, I can now list that as 0 calories per serving. Which means if you look at like the spray bottle for spray oil or canola oil, vegetable oil, whatever it might be, that's going to say 0 calories most of the time. If you ever look at the serving size, it is a very, very small serving. We're talking like maybe a quarter second or an eighth of a second of a spray. Obviously, none of us are using that low of an amount. It's going to be the same thing with like those spray butters for the light butters or the fake butters. It's going to be 1 spray. Great. How many of us actually use 1 spray? I certainly do not. I think 8 would be a low amount for me for a piece of toast. That's just 1 piece of toast. So it's really important for us to understand that the reason that they are allowed to market that way and it can say 0 calories on that label is because of that serving size. Now, that is, as I have seen, mostly a US thing with the FDA. If you go over to places like Europe, nutrition labels are all based on 100-gram serving sizes and portions typically. And so you're going to see the nutrition labels on those per 100 grams of that item. I do think that that is a little bit more straightforward, of course, and I also love it because it makes it pretty much across the board easy for some things like tracking. However, again, for those of us here in the States, that's not the case. We have to kind of go off of those nutrition labels. But it is really important. So it could be the same for our sodas, right? You look at the same soda, and in a 20 ounce, it says 0 calories, but a 2 liter, you now have calorie content on there. And so it's really important to understand that those maybe aren't 0 calorie items. And so they can be beneficial in terms of maybe giving us something sweet like a smaller soda that's going to help us to have that kind of taste, or, you know, some bubblies or whatever it might be. Same thing. So yes, maybe it's a better option than just flopping a lot of olive oil in the pan, but we do still have to use those things within reason, because we can very easily go overboard on them. And what that means is now we're getting extra calorie intake that we are not expecting or not really thinking about, and that can put us over and cause us to not make our goals in terms of whatever it might be for our weight. So it is important to understand those things are not exactly as they seem. Now, is that still a better option possibly for us if, like, hey, I have to have something, I'm going to use spray butter on my toast versus flopping the same amount of real butter on there? Sure, that's a positive improvement. That is still something that would probably be good for us and that we would see positive progress from. However, if we are using so much, it will in fact even that out. So we can't use this as an opportunity to just go all out on those things and say, hey, this is going to be so much better for me. At the most, we would want to say, okay, we're taking a higher calorie product, replacing it with a lower calorie product in the same amounts, then we should still see some positive progress. So it's not that you can't use them, it's not that they can't be good. I think they're still wonderful things. However, we do want to be informed of those details and those kinds of intricacies of what those 0 calorie products kind of represent and what they mean, what they truly are. Now, I think one of the other things that I wanted to talk about today was those kind of fit foods, right? Some things that we market as fitness things, calorie friendly, whatever they may be, that maybe aren't exactly what we think or as good as we might hope they are. And so one of the big ones that a lot of people utilize is protein bars. And inherently there's nothing wrong with protein bars. However, we should not necessarily look at them as this health food per se. Yes, they'll have a little bit higher protein, but they're still going to have carbs, they're still going to have fats, and a lot of them, if they're purporting that they have a low net carb, they still have those carbohydrates. They're just in the form of fibers, sugar alcohols, those kinds of things, which can also be very difficult on digestion. And so we do want to be aware of how often and how much we're utilizing those things. Yes, the extra protein content is great, but it's almost like a candy bar with extra protein for a lot of these. And so looking at the overall calorie value and the overall like macronutrient nutritional information can be really important. Because if we're just doing protein bars, we're not maybe thinking about it, or we're saying, hey, I'm just putting these things aside, so I'm not doing these food sources anymore, and I'm replacing them with protein bars because they're a healthier alternative. They may not be. They may not be a better alternative. Not only because the calories might exceed what you were doing prior, especially if you're not paying attention to that, which could be very normal, and they could have a negative impact on digestion because some of those ingredients are going to be more difficult to digest. They're going to possibly create some more problems. And so it's not that I'm saying, again, don't use those. However, whole foods, less processed foods, like real meals, may be a better option there. Making sure that we're not doing something that we're going to increase that calorie intake exponentially and, again, be really tough on our digestion. The other really important consideration there is some of these fit foods may not exactly be what they seem. We have seen in the past that a lot of these like low calorie fit foods, the things that are supposed to be treats or things that people really love, maybe like nut butter items or like baked good items, what we've seen from some of these companies is that people send in that data to a laboratory, it gets tested, and that laboratory testing for what they're actually selling you does not come back as the calories or the intakes that they're telling you. And so it ends up being just like eating maybe a normal baked good or a normal peanut butter or nut butter kind of treat, instead of being this thing that we were told or sold as being low calorie or more calorie friendly. And so it is important that, for me, you stick with foods that you know you can trust. This is normally going to be people who are, or companies who are larger and who have already kind of garnered that trust over time, making sure that they are in fact giving you what they say they're giving you. But again, also sticking with foods that are whole foods or things that you know you can control. Larger manufacturers, bigger companies typically are going to be under more scrutiny and therefore going to be held to a higher accountability to make sure that those nutrition labels are correct. Within that, yes, there is still one consideration, and I promise this will be the last one. The FDA allows for up to a 20% error ratio on all nutrition labels. It would be impossible for them all to be perfect. So it is important that you understand that even if you are like tracking macros and you have those macro goals, if you're trying to zero out on stuff every single day, you aren't really truly zeroed out. Metabolism is a shifting point anyways. It's going to move throughout the day and from day to day. And again, they cannot control to be perfect with everything. So they are allowed up to a 20% error ratio there, which just means if you don't trust something, if you think it might be too good to be true, hey, it might be too good to be true. Maybe go with those things that you know, those things that are established, and those things that are going to truly benefit you. Because not only are those zero-calorie foods or those fit foods probably not going to give you the same nutrient density, micronutrient intakes of all of your vitamins and minerals that you want, and natural fibers, but they may also be getting you into a place where, hey, now we're using too much of them, right? So I think there's a few reasons why it's a good consideration to limit yourself on those fake foods, zero-calorie foods, and maybe fit foods a little bit more than what most of us would maybe like to think. And so that's the piece I'm going to give you to think about today. How does that affect you and your day-to-day? And then see how that kind of marinates.